Hey folks, The Legend of Zelda is my life. I am not ashamed to say that a lot of my life thoughts throughout the day, and one of the main things that brings me joy revolves around this video game franchise. I live and breathe Zelda games. My love and passion for these unique worlds, characters, and stories goes much deeper than it does for any other franchise. The latest installment, Tears of the Kingdom, is really awesome. I enjoy playing it and re-exploring the changed Kingdom of Hyrule that we first saw in Breath of the Wild. However, now 5 months on from the release of the game, it feels like many fans online are expressing negative feelings about the game. Now, I am not here to say or dictate somebody else's feelings. They are all perfectly valid. That's not for me to say. What I do want to say is, are Zelda games losing their charm? All of this recent decline in interest and negativity around the game feels odd, whether it's general interest or not being happy with the lore. Obviously, it isn't everybody, but given the massively insane hype prior to release, as well as the large sales numbers and record set when the game did drop, why has the interest been dropping so quickly for what was once not so long ago one of the most anticipated sequels and most ambitious games of all time? And why are there so many negative things to say? It's like the magic is wearing off a lot quicker than it should. But why is this? Why does it feel like for so many fans that the charm is gone? Is there a deeper reason, or are the games just losing their charm? In today's video, I want to explore this question, so get yourselves comfy and be sure to go and grab yourself a snack or drink, send them in to get featured, and let's get into this one. As mentioned, the hype surrounding this game prior to release was massive. Breath of the Wild was an explosion of a game. It very quickly became the best-selling Zelda game of all time, and even outsold the mainline Mario game of that time, something which rarely happens. It brought in tons of new fans who had never played Zelda before, or only dabbled in it, as well as bringing in a lot of former players who grew up on the games, but had fallen out of touch with the series, as well as the already well-established fans. It was huge and revolutionary at the time. When a sequel was announced in 2019, 4 years prior to when the game would eventually release, the excitement that was created was genuinely unmatched. In fact, it's that burst of hype which really kicked off my push to go full-time on YouTube. Everyone was so excited to see what Link and Zelda would be up to following the defeat of Calamity Ganon. One of the biggest games of all time was getting a sequel. Trailer after trailer just built more and more insane hype, from a mysterious underground cave to a mind-blowing skydive, to intriguing ruins, thundering storms, and a banging soundtrack. This sequel was going to be it, and when the game did drop, the hype was pretty big. Post-release Tears of the Kingdom was just as you'd have expected. Insane. The excitement spread across the world was awesome. I recall just how excited I was, as in actual raw giddy excitement. The past 4 years had led up to this, and it was all so awesome. From exploring the Great Sky Island to reaching my first dungeon, and my god, the build up to the Wind Temple was no word of a lie. One of the best dungeon build-ups ever. The music, the atmosphere, the setting itself, it was so awesome. The new mechanics, locations, stories, and all of that fun stuff was the talk of the town for a solid 2 months, maybe 3. But it's around here that the novelty felt like it was beginning to wear off for many. Now of course, the honeymoon phase will wear off, like it did with Breath of the Wild, but the difference is, Breath of the Wild held a ton of longevity in terms of fans constantly discussing and being excited about the game beyond those first few months. That game was peak talk of the town for a good few years. Tears of the Kingdom's novelty, in terms of a wider audience, appeared to have dipped big time around the 3 or 4 month mark. And I mean that in terms of the general buzz around the internet, but also as a content creator. Not just myself, but pretty much every Zelda based channel was noticing a dip in views. The talk across Discord servers and social media platforms was also slowly going down. And then came another month, and it had quickly turned into a feeling of the game just didn't live up for many. What gave Zelda games their charm in the past? The reasons we still play and consider games such as Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, The Wind Waker, and some of our favourite games in the franchise? Well, there are two main factors if you ask me: the difference in format and the variety in game worlds. Specifically, the latter. These older games all followed the old Zelda formula of linear progression, as well as taking place in different versions of the kingdom or different settings entirely. Breath of the Wild on its own has tons of charm. The calm, but yet eerily quiet post-apocalyptic kingdom is full of character. The pace of the game and story format has been criticised for not capturing the same feelings as past games, but even with that, the game is still held in insanely high regard by both fans and review pages for its handling of the transition between traditional linear Zelda to modern open world Zelda. Its charm and enjoyment is a big part of why it was still very popular in the years following release, which is honestly hard to achieve in this day and age of video games, as there's always a next game now, a bigger fish. But Breath of the Wild was still played, replayed, and discussed deeply in terms of lore, theories, and whatnot for years following. This type of charm just didn't carry with Tears of the Kingdom, or at least it's proving not to so far. At least long term, like pretty much most past games successfully do. It had those first few months like mentioned, but where we sit now, the vibe is very different to when Breath of the Wild was this old. Two big reasons for this are the copy and paste feelings, as well as lore issues for some fans. Part of why the charm hasn't lasted could be heavily connected to how much of the new content feels copy and pasted. For how much the Sky Islands were pushed and showed off in the marketing for this game, the result was really just the Great Sky Island being a super awesome introduction to the Sky Islands, for the very rest to be very similar to one another. The same names, the same shrine puzzles, and not much variety in looks either. The same goes for the depths. Another massive new area. A lot of content down here has also just been copy and pasted from location to location. You could drop a general screenshot from the depths and have very little way to identify where in the depths you are. This is a problem as it all looks the same. There are no underworld regions or much matching the regions above. The only exception is a few lava falls in the depths of Elden. Otherwise, everywhere's the same. The game being set in the same base world as the previous installment was always going to need to be stellar in its new areas, but in reality, they were cool for the initial burst and exploration, but quickly lost their value when you found out what the rest of it's like. Then there are lore and continuity problems. I myself am on the side of not being super bothered by most of these, but still a little bit like, come on, really? However, there are a significant number of fans, including a good amount of content creators, who really aren't that impressed by some of the lore contradictions and inconsistencies this game created. Now, we do of course already know that Nintendo very much focuses on the game itself, before even tying in any lore and connecting stories. That being said, this game takes the cake when it comes to them. Inconsistencies and timeline changes have been a thing in the series for years, but Tears of the Kingdom really flipped it 180 and then threw it out the window and then pushed it down the drain. I don't even know where I'm going with this. I guess with all of the other reasons attributed to this feeling of less charm, this doesn't help either. Some characters have aged, some haven't. The Zonai were said to be a barbaric tribe, they're furries. What is going on? It's just an odd place to be. The game itself as a video game is really good. It's a contender for Game of the Year, no doubt, but when broken down into what makes Zelda games magical and as long-lasting as titles like Ocarina of Time, it is missing charm in a few ways. It dropped uniqueness in certain areas for genericness. The Sky Islands in particular really hurt, given how much they were showing off leading up to release, but beyond the opening area, it gets very repetitive. In past games, Breath of the Wild included, pretty much every new area you discovered was unique in some way, or even when repeated assets and copy and paste was present, it was used in a creative way to make two areas out of one asset. Tears of the Kingdom just paste the same thing again and again. But hey, those views are more than worth it, and it's kinda a good way to look at this. Sure, the game lacks in certain areas, but there is still a lot of worth in playing through it. The Sky Islands may become boring very quickly, but the beautiful sunsets don't. I think enough time has passed for me to say that I do understand the view of this game just feels like DLC. I do not personally feel that way, but I do understand the view a lot more. I guess where I'm going with this is that I just wish the hype was the same as when Breath of the Wild came out. Those months before Tears of the Kingdom's release, I discussed with fellow creators and friends about how we'll have a good few years of really big hype, just like Breath of the Wild did. But maybe I was naive for thinking it would be the same or super close. Maybe I disregarded things from a more casual fan perspective. Maybe I was just being too obsessed with the idea that this game would be an improvement on Breath of the Wild. Maybe I was wrong. Are Zelda games losing their charm? No. No, they are not. Despite everything just said, feeling like it was building up to that answer, or the answer being yes, I'm very confident in saying no. They are not. Let me explain why I feel this way. Modern day Zelda games are simply just finding themselves and redeveloping as open world games. You gotta remember, for a solid 25 years or so, this series was fully linear. The format changed with Breath of the Wild. It's gonna take time and a bit of a learning curve with each game, which I personally believe Tears of the Kingdom will be a massive part of. It is only the second 3D open world game in the series. Taking into account it shares the same world as its prequel, and it's almost like these two games are just one massive game. The next mainline game really starts looking more and more exciting because of how much Nintendo can build on what they started with Breath of the Wild for open world Zelda games, and expanded with Tears of the Kingdom, whilst also learning what not to do when making a new open world Zelda game. Maybe tone down the size slightly and focus more on filling a smaller space to the max. A big video game world is nothing without content you want to explore within it. I think Nintendo will work on these things going into whatever comes next for the series. And to go even deeper, these last two games were also set in a post-apocalyptic setting. First time round? Pretty cool. Second time round? Yeah, it's still cool, but we just had this. Whatever comes next will likely return to the more lively and bustling populated world that we are more familiar with in Zelda games. That, in an open world Zelda game, sounds so awesome. It's something we haven't seen yet. Obviously, we know absolutely nothing about what's coming next at this moment in time, but man, it's really exciting just thinking about all the possibilities and routes this next big game could take. The charm and pure joy that The Legend of Zelda creates for fans all around the world is not lost at all. It's simply finding itself and navigating through the new demands of open world Zelda. On a personal level, my hype and excitement for our current game Tears of the Kingdom is not going anywhere anytime soon. Games with flaws aren't bad games. This game is not bad at all. Like pretty much any game, it has areas that could be improved, and I'm sure these will be worked on and changed up with the next mainline game. I'm still really enjoying making videos on Tears of the Kingdom, as the world is full of interesting locations, details, and mysteries. Yeah, the initial burst of excitement is past, but I'm still enjoying the game, and there are of course still tons of fans enjoying it as well. As I said a few times throughout the video, this is in no way to say anybody who feels differently on the matter is wrong or invalid. You are totally valid to feel how you feel. I was just inspired to share my thoughts as things just felt a bit doom and gloom recently, and I wanted to drop my 2 cents on the situation. A massive thank you goes to my channel supporters for helping to make these videos all the more possible. With a special mention to new supporter, Josko. Much appreciated. I offer a few cool goodies if you'd like to be a big part of what makes this possible. The links are below, as are my socials and Discord server. Thanks for watching. I hope you all have an amazing day or night, and until the next time, I've been Hyrule Gamer.